So what we'll do next is to hear from the candidates for wards 4 through 6, and we'll do the same format where each candidate gets 2 minutes to make an opening set of remarks. So with that started off, John Dibari, who is running in Ward 4. Right, good.
So first of all, I'd like to thank you for hosting the candidate forum this evening and for the opportunity to participate. As Dave mentioned, my name is John Dibari and I'm running for City Council in Ward 4. I have lived in Missoula for a total of 16 years. The first 6 was from the late 80s to the mid 90s when I was a graduate student at the university, and when I worked for, as it was then known, the Office of Community Development. For the last 10 years, I've lived within Ward 4 in the Lewis and Clark neighborhood with my wife and my son. I have a master's degree in environmental studies from the University of Montana and a PhD in landscape and wildlife ecology from the University of Arizona. While living in Missoula, I've worked for the Forest Service's Fire Lab and the Sonoran Institute, and I've started and operated a couple of our own businesses. I'm running for City Council because I want to lend my voice and experience to the governance of our community. For many years, I've served as a citizen volunteer, and I've made recommendations to Missoula's governing bodies, and now I'm interested in taking that next step and serving as an elected official to contribute to the decisions that shape the character of our community now and in the future. I would bring to the council dependable, experienced leadership, and I've been involved with public service for over 8 years in Missoula. I've volunteered for many organizations. I've been president of the Lewis and Clark Neighborhood Council, technical advisor to the Missoula County Open Lands Committee, and I've served for 7 years on the Consolidated Planning Board. 2 years I've served 2 terms as the president and 1 term as the vice president. I've also taken on additional leadership roles as a member of the planning board as well. So thank you. I appreciate your interest and support.
Thank you. Next we'll hear from Patrick Weasel, please.
I too appreciate being invited to present my case. I'm going through Ward 4. My name is Patrick Weaselhead. The Indian name is Apotakan, and I try to keep that as a focus. I am truly indigenous to Montana. I started school in 1963, and I've been vacant from Montana for a total of 10 years, working in professional careers in Oregon. I've learned that when building aspects of connection, respect is number 1, so I will respect you as long as there's respect back, and that's what I was taught by my family. I'm retired from the university. With additional time, I decided to give back to Missoula. Started with a volunteer stint with Missoula Food Bank. As a Vietnam veteran, I volunteered with DAV to drive veterans to and from health appointments. I served on several boards, Missoula Youth Homes, Missoula Indian Center. I'm currently on Missoula Senior Citizens Board and the University of Montana Alumni Board of Directors. I learned a lot from each. Poverty, mental health, elderly abuse, needs, and all had a major impact on me as I moved forward. I believe in transparency. I work collaboratively, strive for sustainability, and promote inclusiveness. I've also administered major grants through National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, and these were multi-million-dollar grants for multi-years with multiple states. I believe that I bring a diverse indigenous concept to the board. I'm also on the board now as a council member. I understand that there are so many important decisions to make, and as you get thrown into the city council, I have to understand that there's more action taking place in committee meetings than at the board final meeting. So I like to be involved. I want to have an indigenous perspective in the board on the city council, and I look forward to serving Missoula and especially Ward 4.
So John and Patrick are our two candidates for Ward 4. And next we'll hear from Julie Armstrong, sole candidates tonight for Ward 5.
So my name is Julie Armstrong. Thanks for having me and being able to talk to you all. I'm in Ward 5. I'll keep it short and sweet. We've been here for 6 years. I've started a business here. I employ people. We own land in the city. We own land in the county. So I pay taxes. I like to keep a tight rein on our taxes and know what we're paying for, the value of those things, and being on council, that'll be something that I will watch. I have multiple degrees. I've got master's degrees, just like everybody else in Missoula. We have 1,200 degrees and nowhere to use them. One of my focuses will be bringing great jobs in, working with MEP and MRA to continue courting companies to come in with higher paying jobs. Affordable housing is great. You still have to go through the developers, ask them to include that in their developments at a certain percentage, get them to stick with it, and make sure that everybody's happy with the zoning of those things. So that'll be a priority as well. I can certainly be a force of nature when I want to, so I will probably, if I make it on council, be a little bit of a pain, but I work very fast, and I love to work with teams, and I like to get things accomplished. So if you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask.
Speaking of questions, if you have questions, please be writing them down and passing to the front. The ones I didn't get from before, I'll continue to ask as well. And Ed, to the process. Sure. Yes, I have some remaining questions from our last bunch. So if you haven't, I didn't get you the first time, I'll try to get you the second time. And but if there are additional questions, please pass them forward. So next we'll hear from the first of 3 candidates for Ward 6, Michelle Karras.
Hi, my name is Michelle Karras, as mentioned, running for City Council in Ward 6. I'm running because I've spent years volunteering with the Office of Neighborhoods through my neighborhood councils and the community forum where one person from each neighborhood council gets together to hear about citywide topics. My time with the Office of Neighborhoods has exposed me to city council activities and really led me to believe that being active in city politics is something that I am both good at and interested in. I have lived in Missoula for 10 years with my husband. We recently bought a home in Ward 6 because I was thinking about running and wanted to do so in the community where I've lived. We've lived in 4 different places in Ward 6, one in each of the different neighborhoods that make up Ward 6. So I think that provides me a little bit of insight on the different challenges and highlights of all 3 neighborhoods within Ward 6. Some of my strengths include listening and making sure, excuse me, I said that in the wrong order. I'm working on my stump speech. Please continue to attend things that I speak at. You'll see me improve over the months. I know I can listen to and speak with people very well and do well in teams, and I know that watching the city council leads me to believe teamwork is very important. I look forward to speaking with you more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Rick Brown.
Good evening. My name is Rick Brown. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I started out as a child, and I grew up here in Missoula. I graduated from Franklin Grade School, graduated from Hillgate High School. My career activities included 25 years as a law enforcement officer, and I have a degree in police science from Eastern Wyoming. I've worked for the county as a jail officer here in Missoula, and I'm now retired. I don't know what else I can tell you.
Thank you.
6.
So this is the second. So the last candidate for Ward 6 is Michael Ellsworth.
My name is Michael Ellsworth. I'm a veteran of foreign war and a small businessman. Lived here in Missoula all my life. Grew up as a kid in Down River Valley, so this whole culture and traditions here and the Montana lifestyle are not new to me. They've been with old family habits for a long time. I'm bringing forward 3 initiative action plans: growth through agriculture, neighborhood stabilization, and community revitalization. These are sound economic policies that are designed to protect individual rights, freedoms, and liberties, especially when we have ongoing cases and disputes like the water rights issue, and then other aspects as well when it comes to recreation, conservation, preservation, inclusive of even farmland preservation. So I just would like to thank you all for the opportunity to be here, and God bless.
Great, thank you all. So first question is, Missoula is a very different place from the rest of the state. What would you do as a leader of our community to create the change that we desire, that we have in Missoula at the statewide level? So what would you do to show leadership from Missoula for the rest of the state? And we'll just start in reverse order. So Michael, please.
Well, I think transparency is one big initiative, and then increasing public awareness through public participation. Here in Missoula, we have public involvement where individuals can show up and make complaints against one another, but they don't actually have any access to decision-making capabilities, especially at the neighborhood level. So rather than creating boards and subcommittees designed from the state all the way down to the local level and then back up to the federal level, we can implement more sound community workshops and then increase community development in all fields. Thank you.
Well, would you repeat the question, please?
So the question is, what kind of leadership would you show from Missoula to help make the rest of the state more like what we love about Missoula? I rephrased that a little bit, but just what
Well,
kind
I'd
of
have
leadership?
to have more time than this to think about that one, to tell you the truth.
Okay. That's fine if you want to come back to that step.
Okay, well, I'll just pass it on.
Thank you. I agree. Some people think that Missoula is a lot different than other communities. I know you probably have heard that some people say Missoula is 10 miles outside of Montana. I don't think that's a very good way of thinking, and I would hate to feel like others to feel like we're forcing anything down their throats. So I think that the best way for Missoula to be a good example to other communities in the Montana legislature is by sticking to what we know, which is our town, and doing good by it. Thank you.
Patrick is over here saving me with the microphone, teaching me how to use it. I disagree. I love our little fishbowl. I think that politics here is extremely accessible. Everybody can get on the neighborhood community. You have something to say there. That is passed on up to city council. They do listen. All those minutes are recorded. They read everything. You may not feel that they're doing exactly what you wanted them to do, but I guarantee you that they're reading it and listening to it. And no other place that I have lived is it your officials are as accessible as they are here. So I think if you want to lead by example, the inclusion of the community and processes here is exceptional compared to other cities and towns. I guarantee you that you have more access to your mayor here, to all your city council members. For that reason, I think it's fabulous that they get disgruntled and they get incited and they get excited and they get upset and then they get happy because they actually were part of the process to begin with and they are invested in it. So.
Missoula continues to be a vibrant community, and I really appreciate that. Having started in 1963 from Browning, Montana, I saw a vast difference from a rural community to a urban community. I think Missoula needs to look at not providing a model for other cities in Montana because the logistics here in Missoula is a lot different than Bozeman, Billings, Great Falls, Helena. So what we need to take a look at is our other cities like Portland, Seattle, and see what we can take from them as positive aspects in growing. And we talked about the $15 an hour wage. Those things we need to take a look at.
So Missoula is both different than other places in the state, but it's also not different than other places in the state. I think we all face some of the same issues in other growing communities, including affordable housing, living wages, non-discrimination, a variety of issues. So I think over the years, Missoula City Council members and the mayor have shown great leadership in trying to wrestle with some of these important issues, and I think they serve as an example to communities in other parts of the state. And I think it would be also important to continue to work with our legislators to try to advance the things that we think are important at the state level.
So for our next question, let's fast forward to, say, 2 years from now when the courts are all settled, the water issue for Missoula, Missoula City owns it. Regardless of how you feel about that specific process, what would you do to ensure the public that this will be a well-run, responsive utility that would make all that effort worthwhile? So I will start with John.
So I think that one of the things that we've talked about in terms of ownership of Mountain Water is to provide some level of continuity with the leadership and the employees of Mountain Water, and I think that that will help in the transition, provided that they're interested in staying employees of the utility. I think we've had a very deliberate approach to thinking about Mountain Water now for a number of years. It's not just something we've jumped into, and I'm confident, given our ability to run other utilities like the wastewater system, that Missoula will be open with its citizenry and learn from the current employees and continue to do a good job of operating the system for the residents of Missoula.
It's hard to perceive Missoula as changing drastically in 5 years. However, I think if we look at the human rights issue that goes on in Missoula and see if we can enhance that so that we respect others, liberty and justice for all is very important to me. One is the city's growth plan is important, and we need to take a look at that growth plan and how we're going to pay taxes to address that. So when we address those things appropriately on city council, but then again, we also have members of the community who say, you're raising our taxes too much. So we need to take a look at an infrastructure process of saying, how can we handle our water, our sewer, our police force, our fire department, so that everybody in Missoula has a comfortable life and don't have to worry about those things. So infrastructure development is very important to me.
Well, as the question relates strictly to the water utility, let's say we own it, we've paid for it, we got a good price for it. I think to mitigate any possible ill will that may come with any kind of increases in price, the city allowing people to know exactly what's going on. These are the infrastructure problems. This is how much it's going to cost over the next 7 to 10 years to fix it. These are the bonds that are going to have to be passed to fix those things. I think that people will appreciate that. They will be invested in owning their own water. They'll be invested in the process of knowing what it's going to cost to maintain it. And I think maybe that was a little piece that was missing in the beginning when they started to buy it, but we're in it to win it now. We're going to own it, and I think just the way they conduct themselves going forward, letting us all know what's going on and what we're paying for is the most important thing.
When we think about how to run Mountain Water well, I'll echo what they said, all three of them, and then bring in one other piece. I think that yes, we need to focus on leadership continuity, be responsive to citizen oversight, worry about the infrastructure that we have now by doing a fulsome evaluation of it, be transparent of the challenges and future. And I think we need to take the long view when we fold it into the service areas and service departments like development services, and make sure that the way that you can gain access to mountain water and change your access to mountain water is clear and a strong setup, so that way we don't need to go back and edit something that we've already done.
Thank you. I'm going to take the exact opposite tact. I don't think Missoula can operate the water system properly, and I don't think we can offer water after we acquire it at a better rate. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Thank you. Well, and it's like a finality, so to speak, when it comes to the Montana water conflicts that we got. What should be taking place is conservation districts being established as overlap with neighborhood districts, where individual water rights compacts can be created based upon watershed, irrigation plans, even recharge and replenishment. The second aspect, as we should be doing this under conservation neighborhood districting, we can offer each district as a joint stock holding company where the people are secured in their certificates of water rights. And then that also leads to resolving future conflicts of diversions of water or appropriations of water or any other arising disputes, but we can clearly do it at the neighborhood level, protecting the individuals and just treat it as if they were a public water trust or a joint stock company. So,
Thank you. So for our third or fourth question, tell us what you would do to, and start with Michael. What would you do to address the workforce development issues? For example, people who want to own and make enough wages, own their own home and make enough wages to live in Missoula. What would you do to address the workforce and housing issues? Both of those if you can.
well, this is one good aspect to be addressed, and it has to do with community smart and orderly growth as well as economic development. Right now, the city growth policy is an inward growth policy, and it has serious effects, especially in urban sprawl, both horizontal and vertically. And that has huge bearings upon the market conditions. But the smartest thing in addressing both issues is to go away from a strict service-based economy and provide a real estate-based economy. And this will secure people within their home prices, and then it allows other developments like renewable resource development and alternative energy as well. Those are big issues. That's the future, as well as healthcare.
Well, once again, I'm not sure. One of the things about owning a house in Missoula is you have to have a job. And I think we need to do something about bringing more employment, more industry into the community. You can't just buy a house out of the air. There's a lot of developments for single-person dwellings that are being put up now. I don't think that's a good way for people to move forward.
Thank you.
Sorry.
When I think about what the city can do to address workforce and housing challenges, I think that the first thing that comes to mind is having good infrastructure develop both, so that folks who want to build businesses and employ people here are able to access the services that they need. And I think that we are doing a good job and are aware of that need, and so I think that the City of Missoula and the City Council should continue on their track of providing good infrastructure for employers and citizens. And when I think about housing challenges, there's so many directions you could head in that topic, and the one that I'd like to mention is low-income housing, specifically the solution I want to talk about is rapid rehousing and providing people a little bit of funds that allow them to stay in the houses that they are currently in, rather than working really hard to get them back into housing when they've already lost their housing. There are two rapid rehousing. I think that we should support more programs like that. Excuse me for going over time.
Well, that's a huge question. I think it's all going to go back to we need more good paying jobs here. So we've got the broadband project coming up that will attract larger companies to come here and set up because let's face it, they've got higher speed internet access. They can actually function. University has a big data program, which will start to attract larger companies to come in here and I would have to defer to my husband on this, he works with data, but working with larger data because it's involved in every large corporation now. If we can get our airport with a few more routes that will allow for commuter travel, I think that will bring some larger businesses in here as well. And when we get larger businesses, they will provide a hierarchy of jobs in different ranges. As for the housing thing, I don't know enough to speak on it. But I would hope that all new multifamily housing should have a rate of affordable housing they have to build into it, whether it's 10% or 12%, which, again, I don't know enough about that to speak on it.
You know, being old enough to understand about Ford Motor Company and how they paid their employees enough so that they can buy a Ford car is really important to me. If we can't pay our people enough money so that they can afford to buy in this community, it's not going to create any kind of economic development. I got a C in microeconomics when I was undergraduate, but I understand that the supply and demand, and if we circulate that dollar more in the community, it's going to grow more businesses. And so if we pay more, buy more, we're going to recirculate that dollar within a community and we're going to create jobs. So it's important for us to do that, but not just $15 an hour wage over a transitional period of time, but try to get the individuals to look at on-the-job training, having skills to get better jobs, promote education. Having worked with the DAV and all the other organizations, I want to see something systemic to make the change. The University of Montana
You didn't even give me enough time to finish my thought. So I think the city has been working hard with a number of partners, MEP, BRED, the Blackstone Launchpad at the university to create economic development opportunities in the community. The broadband initiative, as was brought up. I think it's also been working hard with partners to help develop affordable housing and housing in general. I'm a member of the Our Missoula Growth Policy Steering Committee, and one of the things that we talk about, and that we've talked about as a part of that, was housing for all. So we're talking about not just housing for the lowest income folks, but for high income folks of all ages and all abilities. So it runs the gamut, and I think that our growth policy that hopefully will be coming before City Council in the not too distant future will be really helpful in trying to provide opportunities for mixed use and density, transit-oriented design, and other things that will help in this community in terms of developing affordable housing.
Thanks. I appreciate you all being very good about the time. You can actually complete your sentence.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
We do want to hear from you, so.
go ahead and finish that sentence. Don't add more than 3 verbs or 2 dependent clauses.
So our last question is about something that we often like to complain about, which is the traffic on Reserve Street. What would you do to alleviate the traffic jams there? Would it be raising money for additional construction, Blue Mountain Road to I-90? Just any ideas you have along those lines, please, and we'll start with you.
Sure. One of the written questions too was about what was a good transportation network, and I think Reserve Street is a manifestation of the built environment that we have, and I think all of us would agree that continuing that pattern would not be a good idea. So I think it's incumbent upon us as city council members who are working with land use and developing plans and regulations is to create an environment where things like Reserve Street don't exist in the future and where we can work to try to alleviate that. So one of the initiatives that has come down recently was fare-free transit. I think that's an excellent opportunity for folks. Multimodal transportation, continuing to look at how we go ahead and build infrastructure for pedestrians and cyclists and people of so that people of all abilities can use non-motorized transportation. And I think we should continue working with our, do I have a second to finish the thought? Finish with other citizen groups like MIST in order to provide great community input in how we develop our transportation infrastructure.
That's quite okay. Thank you. I'm going to finish the last sentence. Habitat for Humanity is very important to help with the housing industry. Also, the University of Montana is promoting that we pay our graduates the amount of money they would pay in Seattle and Portland to keep the brain drain here, so I believe in that. There are things about Reserve Street that has me really concerned, and one of the things is the safety issue with the recent deaths. I've been asking about the question of limited access to Reserve Street, because it is supposed to bring from south to north, north to south in an efficient manner, but yet we have accessibility on every corner, so that we need to take a look at that and review it again. Another thing is to take a look at an alternative site. If Reserve was built to get traffic north and south to north, we need to take a look at another one like what they have around interstate of major cities, 405, 305, to get more around the city and have a limited access to that road. So the beginning point starts and it's like a fast lane. You can't get in there until you get to that point. So we need to take a look at that because traffic is real bad in Missoula.
Well, I'm not a traffic scientist, but since I live in Ward 5, I live near the intersection of Brooks and Reserve, and it's a nightmare. I know the new Southgate Mall project that is going in is wanting to increase a road grid that will give more thoroughfares between a little further up on Brooks and then another thoroughfare out to Reserve that would alleviate some of the congestion there at the entrance to Missoula that they're wanting to build across the road. It's not one of those things I've studied a lot, so I understand what the alternatives are. I don't know if ramps, they've been talking about building off and on ramps to Reserve to alleviate traffic. I don't really know how that will work, but I come from Dallas, so it's not that bad to me.
Oh, I've been in Dallas.
It seems bad to me every day at 5 p.m. when I drive home, but I understand that it's a different kind of bad, relatively bad. And I wish it weren't, but I think that I am so interested in the idea about creating an alternative for limited access for people who are using it primarily for the 93 aspect of Reserve. I've never heard anyone say that that is feasible, but I wish it were, and I would join the committee that would work to and explore that idea. I also am interested in learning more about the traffic timing of all of our city lights, a concern and complaint I hear many times. So those are two of the things that I would maybe prioritize, and we're wondering about alleviating Reserve Street traffic, because I agree it is relatively terrible for our town.
I was just coming from a meeting at Franklin Park where the Franklin Fort people were having a barbecue. And at the barbecue, there was representatives from the city roads department. And they were explaining the new roundabouts that are supposed to go in at Van Buren and Orange. And I actually hate the roundabouts in this town. But the roundabouts, as they were explaining them, are going to be very beneficial so you can get in and out of those areas. And I would greatly support them in their efforts as they are going now. They've thought this very well through. Thank you.
Well, I think like the most important aspect when it comes to the transportation policy is by including a plan based upon metropolitan district level planning, including where you have Lolo, Frenchtown, the bikes and pathways and vehicle movements. I think within having enough open space already in between and then within the city, as well as other designated areas for rights of way, because that's what it's considered. We can literally implement better greenways between bike paths and pedestrian paths. We can segregate bike paths from the actual traffic, lower incidents. And then the overall sustainable design should be based upon commission studies where we actually employ surveyors, engineers, and architects, rather than having just a community planning service where the individuals don't hold such professional degrees nor experiences in that. And then with that, we should be directly underneath the city's authority to control it, rather than keep pushing it back into committee or some other bureaucracy. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, now we'll go to our closing comments. If you'd like, you can address the single most important value that you bring to the job of being a city council person, or whatever else you'd like to talk about in your last minute. Thank you.
I think the experiences I can bring are sound economic policies based upon rights-based initiative action plans. These are matters of hope for home ownership. Like We can provide homeowner bailout programs, and we can even do community revitalization. It is a matter of economics within the local county structure. And we could do this with lowering property taxes, going away with having boards upon boards, and implementing community designs and workshops. So then it's a matter of due process, and it involves individuals to have public participation at the community neighborhood level, for which they have decision-making authorities. Thank you.
This question pertains to something that we would be interested in doing as councilman. Is that correct?
It's your closing statement and or what value you would say would most be portrayed in your councilship.
Well, I'm just going to say that if elected, I would plan to be a friend to the city courts and the city judge, the police department, and the firefighters of this community. Due to my background, that's areas I'm interested in and knowledgeable about. So if the police or the fire or the courts asked for something, I would have knowledge of what they were speaking of. Thank you.
I would just like to close by saying that I think I am the best choice for Ward 6 and look forward to learning more about what our town needs and how I can access this information to improve it. I am a dedicated community volunteer. These are pieces I wish I'd included in my intro. I volunteer with the YWCA and Missoula Children's Theater and other community organizations, and I think that I have the network available to me to really gain the answers we need to answer some of our most pressing questions. Thank you for coming tonight. If you wish to learn more, please visit my website at caresforcouncil.com. Thank you.
So I have the time to take on this full-time job because that's what it's going to be. I've had some experience on the Public Art Council and kind of jumped in head first with that and have gotten very involved in the couple projects we have on the table. I'm pretty good at wrangling cats in a paper bag and getting consensus and working well with groups. So I can tell you a million different things. One of my objectives is single stream recycling. I can't tell you how disappointed I've been since we've lived here that there's not a way to recycle. I know it's not profitable, but I think there's a way to make it profitable by bringing industries in that can make it profitable. So I will be working on that regardless if I'm on council or not. It's just become one of my passions. I've got a good accounting background, a good head for numbers, good head for organization, and I think I'll do a great job. There is a website out there, Missoula Ward 5. Go take a look. If you don't like what you see, there's a place to yell at me there, so please do. I encourage a lot of two-way communication.
I currently serve on the city council as an appointee. I would like to serve on the city council as an elected official. But let me tell you that you have quite a few good members in Ward 4 that are already there. And I think John Wilkins does a great job, and I know Dave Dibari, if he elected, would do a great job. But there's a tenet of the basic Democratic Party that I believe in, and that's to main stewardship. If you don't main stewardship of the land, you're going to pay down the road. So I'm acting now for well-being of the future generations. I truly believe in the 7 generations. You look at the 2 before here, you look at the 1 currently, and you plan for 2 years in the future. So that's important for me. I want to focus on energy, education, human rights, transportation, and healthcare. Throughout my life, I've always asked the organizations, where's your indigenous peoples in the office? And they say nobody ever applies. So I don't want this to be one where somebody says nobody applies who's from an indigenous background because I submitted my name. I believe in transparency, I work collaboratively, I strive for sustainability, and I promote inclusiveness. Always ask the question about diversity no matter where I go.
So as I've mentioned, I have multiple years of experience serving on the Missoula Consolidated Planning Board. I've been a part of decision-making processes and providing recommendations to the governing bodies on a host of different rules and regulations that help shape the character, the form, and the function of our community. So I think that's a real asset that I would bring to City Council. I've also learned a lot about leadership and the deliberative nature of decision making, and I think that it's been a really useful education in being a part of that community board. I've learned to listen to constituents, citizens. I've learned to become empathetic and understand their position. I've learned to be thoughtful and do my homework in terms of understanding what's before me as a planning board member. And I've learned to make the best decisions that I can make for the overall character and quality of Missoula. So I appreciate your support, and thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you all for stepping up and being willing to serve, and join me in it.